Anyway, and then you have the hat trick. Number 3. You guys remember last week when I talked about how Breaking Points decided not to air my interview with Elijah Schaffer, who is being sued currently by Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins? Well, yesterday, their producer sent me an email notifying me that my relationship with them will end, quote unquote, effective immediately. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but my gut feeling is that they probably felt that I was free speeching just a little too hard for their liking. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to free speech even harder. Yo.
The vanguard will be there, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a story that crossed our radar a little bit a few days ago, right? Because I saw, and I believe you saw as well, a video that James Lee put up on his own personal YouTube channel, and he was advertising it as the interview Breaking Points won't let me air. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, total facepalm. I've always been of the opinion that it was really cringy that James Lee's videos showed up on Breaking Points. You know, I like Emily and Ryan on Breaking Points, but other than that, when I click on Breaking Points, I really just want to see Saagar and Krystal and, you know, tight-knit crew, maybe Griffin on the panel here and there. Was never personally that interested in James Lee, nor was I ever really that impressed with him. So at first I just saw that he uploaded it and I didn't even bother to check it out until a few days later. But what was your reaction when you saw that?
I had a very similar reaction, and honestly, we can take a look at a few minutes from that video because I had a very similar opinion on James Lee. I don't hate the guy. You know, I don't think he's like one of the worst people on the internet or whatever. Someone in chat was comparing him to Kim Iverson. I think that's a pretty damn strong comparison in the sense that, yeah, like sometimes you tune into Kim Iverson and she's right about things. Like she's not always 100% wrong. But a lot of times she fucking is. A lot of times she'll be kind of wading into unserious waters of just kind of conspiratorial gobbledygook and shit like that. And I say that as someone who has a pretty high tolerance, quite frankly, for conspiratorial content. I think so does Breaking Points. You know, Breaking Points historically has dabbled in the Wuhan lab leak and all sorts of different theories. The Charlie Kirk shit. I think they did some like 9/11 coverage at one point. The UFOs. Saagar has, you know, consistently been beating the drum on the UFO stuff. So it's not like they're above it. It's not like they're just like these super serious, you know, we only read the New York Times over here at Breaking Points. That's not what's going on here. But yeah, as you mentioned, Zach, I also thought this was pretty weird. I kind of imagined that he had like gotten like permission to title his video in this way because it just seems kind of unprofessional, I guess. The interview Breaking Points won't let me air. So again, I figured that he was like he was told that, you know, for whatever reason, the reason you're about to find out, but for whatever reason, you know, you can't post this video on Breaking Points. And then he might have asked, okay, well, can I post it on my channel with this kind of clickbaity title to get people more interested? The interview Breaking Points won't let me air. So I didn't think much of it. I just assumed, you know, he had kind of gotten their permission in a sense to title the video that way. It doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like it based on, you know, what we're about to talk about and what ultimately came of all of this. But I actually think it has more to do with the branding of this and this like weird, like free speech dick measuring contest that James Lee has ignited. I think it has more to do with that, him getting fired, than the actual contents of this interview. I actually think he just kind of pissed him off with this framing of the whole video drop and this whole like I care more about free speech than Breaking Points and like, you know, they're trying to censor me.
That's 100% what I think as well. I completely agree with you, and that's what made this a real, like, for lack of a better word, bitch move, because it did come across like, oh, I'm taking a backhanded shot at Breaking Points. Like they don't care enough about the truth. Like they don't care about integrity and, you know, transparency in journalism, and they don't care about holding power to account like I do, right? It felt very much like I'm going to take a shot at the people who have employed me. And yeah, after that, it's like, okay, well, then it seems like we might not have much work to do left together if this is how you feel about our organization. But yeah, let's take a look from James.
100%. And even though he technically, I guess, was employed by them, he really was a contributor. He's not Saagar. It's not like, right. Or he's not Ryan Grimm. It's not like Krystal sat down Ryan and said, hey, you're not allowed to share your new fucking like drop site reporting. Like this guy's a glorified contributor. He's lucky to have ever been allowed to upload his crap to the Breaking Points channel. If you want my honest opinion, again, I'm sure he's a nice individual or whatever, but yeah, let's take a look at this and then we'll watch his next video where he, you know, claims that he was straight up fired.
So last week, I interviewed Elijah Schaffer, a political commentator who is currently being sued by Alexis Wilkins, the girlfriend of FBI Director Kash Patel, in a segment that was supposed to air on Breaking Points with Krystal and Saagar. As many of you might know, I've been an active contributor on their channel for a few years now, and not once, to their credit, have they exerted any editorial influence on my work. But after submitting my segment to them last week, I was told by their producer that they will not, unfortunately, be able to run the interview because, quote, due to the subject matter, our lawyers reviewed the video and advised us that it might be in potential defamation territory, and also described.
Basically, he says that he submitted this interview, the one that's contained within this video with Elijah Schaffer. And he got this message from the Breaking Points producer saying, due to the subject matter, our lawyers have reviewed the video and advised us that it may be in potential defamation territory, and also described it as non-neutral reporting, which could put us at more risk for a lawsuit. And just to be clear, I did want to say up front, we are, friends with Griffin, who's the producer of Breaking Points. I'm not sure if this is exactly the producer that sent this to James, but just cards on the table. We do know some of the people involved in the story. We are friends with, Griffin. And I don't know. I imagine that Breaking Points does take this stuff pretty seriously. I imagine that any media organization that's as big as Breaking Points does take this stuff pretty seriously. I'm not an expert when it comes to defamation law or, whatever the issue is here. So I don't really know about, whatever kind of case could be made against Breaking Point in that sense. But I do imagine that they take this shit pretty seriously, and they wouldn't have just said that for no reason. It doesn't seem like something they would say or put forward as a reason for not running a segment for just no reason. It seems like, they take that seriously, and they don't want to put their entire company at risk so that this contributor can run a segment which neither of them or none of them were involved in.
Yeah, I think that it really doesn't come across as terribly unreasonable. And yeah, it's good that you point that out there. Griffin also does not take any of my fucking feedback when I send it to him. So, it's not like we've got his ear, but totally he's our, friend of the show. And I think when you look at this, it's twofold, right? I can't speak to the fact that any of this would be illegal or that it would put Breaking Points in any kind of legal litigious jeopardy. But what I can say is that after watching, the good bulk of this, I didn't make it through the whole thing. I made it through, I would say, 75% of the interview that he did with this Elijah Schaffer guy. And I thought that, it probably didn't live up to the journalistic scrutiny that they want to have when they sign off on this and say, this is a Breaking Points affiliated video. To me, if you're a contributor like this, it's kind of like pitching to an editor, right? And say that I'm a contributor for Rolling Stone magazine, right? But I'm not entirely employed by Rolling Stone magazine. I run my own fucking blog. So I pitch a story to Rolling Stone. They say, I don't want to run that. So I run it on my blog instead. Why? Because they felt like it wasn't for them, because they thought that it didn't meet the, journalistic rigor. Gavin and I host a podcast. We're not journalists. They were like, hey, it's fine if you're just doing an editorial thing, but we're trying to do more news over here, and it doesn't read like a neutral news written piece. So it's just not compatible with what we're doing over here. Go ahead and post it on your platform. We would never tell you what to do with your platform. I don't see anything unreasonable about this, and I don't know why that would have elicited the kind of response it did from James Lee.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty interesting. And as you mentioned, Zach, the guy has his own freaking channel. It has 149 subscribers. As you can see here, the dude's been posting, tons of segments on his channel for a long time that don't end up on Breaking Points. So it's not like everything that James Lee produces ends up on Breaking Points. It's not just like he has a right, to get every single piece of his platformed on that channel, which again is much bigger than his show. So I do think it's interesting, this whole notion of like, oh, they're censoring me or whatever because they personally decided not to do this, not to post this video. And of course, some people in chat, and I've seen some defenders of James being like, Krystal and Saagar are defending Kash Patel. They're defending Kash Patel. Bro, I watch Breaking Points like almost every single day. To say that in any way Breaking Points is a show that defends Kash Patel or has even an ounce of sympathy for Kash Patel, that's just crazy. It's a lie. It's a straight up fucking lie. So I think to insinuate that is pretty low. Not that James Lee himself did, but I've seen a lot of people insinuating that. And again, Breaking Points has been one of the most critical shows of the Trump administration in general, but I think specifically Kash Patel. I mean, they've run multiple segments, just absolutely roasting him, exposing his incompetence, going after him in a variety of ways. It appears that they did feel like this specific attack on Kash Patel may not have merited being platformed on their channel at this point without their, kind of seal of approval on it, right? Because if you're going to say something that is a little bit more out there, then yeah, I think they would probably imagine that they would want their viewers to hear that coming from them, not this fucking rando who they don't really trust as much. Because again, Krystal and Saagar say conspiratorial things themselves. Oftentimes, Saagar loves talking about UFOs. They went all in out on the Charlie Kirk conspiracy stuff, right? It's not like they don't ever talk about more conspiratorial stuff. But again, I think it's their right to say, hey, you know what? For whatever reason, seemingly because of the defamation thing, yeah, we don't want to run this story. That's their right. You know what I'm saying? That's their fucking right. That's just how it works. And it doesn't mean you're being censored if you're like told not this time, put that on your own channel.
Literally, that's the whole thing. We need to more clearly define what censorship is, right? Getting an editor that tells you, hey, we're not buying this story you're pitching is not censorship. Okay, you got to shop it around somewhere else or upload it. You know how many times Gavin and I would get rejected if we tried fucking pitching our shit to people? We would get rejected constantly, right? It's crazy. And to your point about Kash Patel, not only have they done over 15 segments on Kash Patel on Breaking Points over the last number of months, which I just quickly searched on their YouTube channel, they published a video on Kash Patel 2 hours ago, Gavin. Report: FBI agents ridicule Kash with a fucking money sign. Charlie Kirk handling. Ridicule, and I think it's supposed to be Kash's Charlie Kirk handling, but there's a typo on there. Either way, very critical of Kash Patel. I can go ahead and throw it up on screen so everybody knows I'm not fronting. This is from today, right here.
All right,
as people try and pretend that they're somehow unwilling to criticize Kash Patel. That's crazy. Saagar has been very, very, very vocally critical of MAGA and the State Department and the way the FBI is being handled. He's been adamantly opposed to the escalations and the fucking extrajudicial killings and the war crimes being committed by the MAGA administration in Venezuela. There are a lot of things that I've been critical of Saagar Enjeti for, and things that I've disagreed with the entire Breaking Points network on, but that's just not a valid criticism.
Yeah, 100%. So again, he's talking about how, I'm so into free speech that I'm going to publish this interview, even though Breaking Points wouldn't dare. We can watch a few more seconds to this, and then we'll watch the next video where he talks about how he was fired.
Described it as non-neutral reporting, which would put it as more at risk for a lawsuit. That is, of course, their prerogative, which I totally respect. I'm not coming at them for wanting to protect their business. It is their business after all. So in no way is this supposed to be interpreted as me wanting to slight them. But I have decided to air that interview on my channel right now because personally, I think this kind of thing sets a bad precedent in regards to the ability of powerful figures to intimidate independent media outlets from publishing stories or discussing topics for fear of legal retribution. Because let's be real, most of us, I know I don't. Most of us don't have the millions of dollars it takes to fight a lawsuit, even one that we know to be bogus. So without further ado, here is that interview with Elijah.
He says, I'm not going to slight Breaking Points, like their prerogative is their prerogative. And then he goes on to slight them directly and indirectly, both with the headline of his video and basically calling them cowards and saying that they're not brave enough to do what he's about to do, which is risk it all, even though he doesn't have the resources they have, and put his name out there. No, what they don't want to do is debase themselves with your clown bullshit that you can't substantiate, dog.
Yeah, that's my least favorite part of all of this. It's like he's trying to be nice to them, but also call them out. And he's trying to gracefully accept the rejection, but also imply that, again, it's only because his free speech dick is bigger than theirs, right? He wants to make this like a free speech dick measuring contest. And he wants to act like, Breaking Points, maybe they're censoring me. Who knows what's going on here? And that only continues in the next video because again, he wants to try to be like nice and understanding about the situation, but also straight up imply that something shady is going on behind the scenes that Breaking Points is complicit in, or that they're participating in. Which again, I do find to be a little bit slimy. It's like, if you think that, then fucking come out and say it. Come out and fucking say it. Make that accusation. But it doesn't seem like he's quite willing to go that far. He just wants to imply it so that he can, again, then claim to be like a victim of censorship or whatever.
Anyway, and then you have the hat trick. Number 3. You guys remember last week when I talked about how Breaking Points decided not to air my interview with Elijah Schaffer, who is being sued currently by Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins? Well, yesterday, their producer sent me an email notifying me that my relationship with them will end, quote unquote, effective immediately. The reason they cited is that they're, quote unquote, looking ahead to 2026 and making some changes in content, and felt that my submissions did not align with their new direction. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but my gut feeling is that they probably felt that I was free speeching just a little too hard for their liking.
And again, he wants to be nice to them. He wants to say like, oh, I totally understand, it's their decision. But then he also, again, wants to imply that they're censoring him. And I just simply disagree with that. I don't think that, given the coverage of Kash Patel and of Israel that you find on a daily basis from the Breaking Points crew, given that coverage, given the tenor they strike when it comes to those exact 2 issues that you're claiming they're censoring you on behalf of, no, I just don't fucking buy it. And if anything, James, you've got to hang around the Breaking Points farm a lot longer than all the other quote unquote contributors that were also at one point given the axe. If you guys remember back in the day on Breaking Points, they actually briefly kind of tried to start like a network where they had other people, in addition to James Lee, uploading independent content that was created, again, independently of Krystal and Saagar. Fucking Maximilian Jordan Sheraton was one of them. Maximilian Alvarez was one of them. I think there was even a few more. At one point, this was like a real thing they were trying to do. They were trying to host other voices and let them upload their own content. At one point, they were even letting Kyle do it. Just random secular talk videos would appear on the Breaking Points channel. Over the years, they've moved away from that. And James is actually the one that got to hang around the longest. Jordan Sheraton, Maximilian Alvarez, all those other guys, they kind of, got the axe. Again, not that it was like a result of any hard feelings. I think it was just a decision that the channel wanted to lean more into the perspectives of Krystal, Saagar, Ryan, and Emily. When they brought on Ryan and Emily, I think they were probably like, okay, now we have enough voices. We don't need to keep having all of these like contributors, these independent videos that frankly don't get as much attention or views when they're uploaded, because most people expect to see Krystal, Saagar, Ryan, or Emily in the Breaking Points set when they click on a Breaking Points video. So I don't think this guy's being censored any more than Jordan Sheraton was being censored, or any more than Maximilian Alvarez was being censored. And quite frankly, I think that the reason why they did can this guy is not because he was speaking too much truth. I think it's because it just rubbed them the wrong way to see him post this bullshit of, Breaking Points won't let me air this. I think it's because I was free speeching too hard, bro. I think I just free speeched a little bit too close to the sun for good old Krystal and Saagar. Like that's literally what he's saying. And I do think that it was that ultimately rubbed them the wrong way. Now you can say that's petty. That's, I don't agree with that. Krystal and Saagar shouldn't care about the fact that he's out here saying that shit about them, even though they've hosted his videos for fucking years on a channel way bigger than his and done him a huge favor. Maybe you should say that this shouldn't matter at all. Okay, that's totally fair. You're more than willing to have that opinion. But I think that is ultimately what led to this, not anything related to censorship, not him crossing any red line about Kash Patel or Israel, 2 topics which Krystal and Saagar talk about all the time in an incredibly critical way.
And I think that this might have just been the straw that broke the camel's back, right? Because Gavin's point that there had been all kinds of people who were far more left-leaning, by the way, than James Lee. James Lee was like an RFK MAGA guy, okay, who's really into whatever conspiracy theory is hot on the block. Maha fell off, so he had to move on to the Charlie Kirk killing. And he's just doing like his Diet Candace Owens shtick most of the time over here anyway. And I think that genuinely didn't mesh. So now you have a guy who's not making you money, who's not really meshing with you, and who's calling you out. And this is just bullshit. Like, I just get so annoyed because I do think James Lee is genuinely smart enough to know that Candace Owens is just making this all up to be relevant now, but he's trying to ride that wave. He's trying to surf that momentum. and he's trying to pretend like Breaking Points is somehow like a part of the establishment now because they were critical of him or they, exercised any kind of editorial control over a person who's not even a hired employee but a contributor.
Yeah, 100%. So again, it's not like I think James Lee is like the worst person out there. I don't think he's like this total fucking, evil guy or anything. Again, if anything, he kind of reminds me of Kim Iverson, who like I occasionally watch, but I'm not saying that Kim Iverson should be part of Breaking Points. You know what I mean? Like I don't think she should be censored. But if I was Krystal and Saagar, I also wouldn't be, taking her submissions either. Sorry, bro. But at some point you gotta get retired. And just go to your own channel. Again, you have this interview, post it on your own fucking channel. Krystal and Saagar have no fucking obligation to post your fucking interview on their show. It's just weird for him to make a big deal about this instead of just be graceful and understanding. Either way, let's watch a little bit more of this because he really wants to imply that they're somehow part of this cabal of censorious Zionist elites or some stupid shit like that.
Literally.
I'm not exactly sure what that means, but my gut feeling is that they probably felt that I was free speeching just a little too hard for their liking. And that is that. And quite honestly, I have absolutely no ill feelings from my side at all. I know many of you are Breaking Point supporters, right? That's probably where you first found my content to begin with.
All right, can I raise one? I'm sorry to chime in one more time. If you did feel like they were silencing you and that you were free speeching too hard, like why wouldn't you have some animosity towards them? If you genuinely felt like they had wronged you and that they had silenced you and that they had gone along with this cabal that was the third strike to punish you and make you afraid to speak truth to power, wouldn't you have a little bit of animosity towards them? That's what this does. Like, I wish you would either just go full in there and be like, fuck you, you can't handle the truth or not. But this weird like teeter-tottering of it makes it seem even more like mostly a lie.
And again, Krystal and Saagar, again, I just don't see any evidence that they have even remotely censorious instincts when it comes to the issue of Israel and fucking Kash Patel. Two issues which they talk about all the time very, very critically. So I just view it as that, where it's like, okay, I'm parting ways with this company. Just like as a business decision, I have to brand it as if I'm a truth teller getting censored. And it's a little bit played out.
Supporting them if you so choose. That being said, it is clear that I am under attack right now from various forces for doing journalism. Essentially, that is it. I am being targeted for exercising my First Amendment rights. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to free speech even harder. I think that is the only reasonable response.
Dudes.
Yeah, and right there, I mean, I'm like, I don't give a shit, bro. If you're that cringy, then yeah, I can understand why Breaking Points had to part ways with you. What are we going to do? We're going to free speech even harder. Oh, yeah, bro. I'm like, what is this fucking like, Jimmy Dore, but with no edge? You know what I'm saying? It's just this bland, stupid, cheesy bullshit. And again, I know I'm being super mean to James Lee. I don't have anything specifically against him. We've never interacted with him. We've never talked with him. He might be very nice in person. I have no idea. But to me, I'm just like, yeah, Breaking Points lets you post your crap on their channel for way longer than they really probably should have. And now that the gig is up, mostly thanks to you and your unprofessional behavior, now you want to come out here and be like, I'm being censored, and then imply that Krystal and Saagar are somehow in cahoots with like Larry Ellison and TikTok and the Zionists at the Anti-Defamation League. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? That's just quite a stretch. And I just really hate how he wants to have it both ways, right? He also took to Twitter the other night to post, I just want to give a massive thank you to Saagar, who reached out to me when I just had 2,000 subscribers. So this, thank you so much to these people that fucking made my entire career, made me at all relevant. And now as soon as, things are changing, I'm going to throw them under the bus and imply that they're fucking censoring me in collaboration with Zionists and Larry Ellison. I don't know. To me, it's just it's pretty obvious that that's the implication, and it seems like he wants to have it both ways. It seems like he wants to both preserve his business relationship with people like Saagar Enjeti while also profit off of like fucking implying things about them that simply don't seem to be true.
Bro, I can't speak for anyone else, right? We made it clear, like, yeah, I like the Breaking Points people for the most part. Saagar and Emily and I have no love lost between us, as you guys would probably imagine. But yeah, Griffin's our pal. Clarifying all of that, like, if this was just us, right, and we'd been collaborating with somebody or even just had them on our show regularly and they started to imply shit about us like this, I would be pissed. Gavin knows how pissed I would get. Gavin and I would actually both be pissed. We would be feeding each other. We would be like, fuck this. Are you kidding me? After we found you when you had 2,000 subs and you didn't even call us first, you're going to title your video that shit and come after us? Oh, no, now it's war, pal. Now it's fucking war. Like, you would just, there's a natural human element to that. It's like if somebody takes a shot at you like that and they don't even call you first and you actually do have a real working relationship with them, you're going to be a little pissed off. You're going to be like, what the fuck? Especially if you do this like pussyfoot shit. Like, I'm half in, I'm half out. I want to pretend that I'm still nice and cool to you guys as I pretend that you're censoring me and I slander you. Like, it's completely nuts. And the last thing I did want to throw up here, Gavin, is that this guy that he interviewed, you know, he may be the victim of censorship, but he's also just like the least serious guy on planet Earth. And I'm just like, he's over here I think he might actually be like a white supremacist. All of his fucking feed over here is like fear mongering about black people. It's like, never relax. This is the guy that James Lee wanted Breaking Points to air his interview with. Never relax. Black male enters a store and strikes a random toddler, causing a bloody nose. And there's bunches of them. A Sudanese refugee MMA champion has been spared jail for a vicious and unprovoked bashing in Western Sydney. You can keep going. And it's like more and more just like unhinged racist shit all fucking day.
Yeah, people are literally saying Elijah Schaffer is a white nationalist.
Yeah.
So again, it's like I that doesn't mean he deserves to be sued based on this fucking meme he posted about Kash Patel, which does seem totally innocent, to be honest. But yeah, I wouldn't want to host an interview with that fucking piece of shit on our show either. And you can cover the story, but you don't have to let the fucking guy run his mouth.
Exactly. And I think that, again, that could have just been a regular editorial decision. That's not censorship. It's like, hey, dude, no, if we have that guy on the show, our tone is going to be totally different. We're going to take a different position. We're going to prioritize asking him different questions than you did. So why don't you put that on your channel where you get to make 100% of the editorial decisions? And then if we ever decide to have this Elijah Schaffer clown on our show, we'll be in charge of who asks him what questions. I think that's very reasonable. And again, not reflective of censorship, especially when you're dealing with a known white supremacist.
Yeah, 100%. And why the fuck would we stand up for this? Like this guy saying, why are you standing up for BP? Because I actually fucking watch Breaking Points and I actually like their coverage. I don't watch James Lee. I don't usually like his coverage. He's like a cringy RFK Maha grifter who occasionally makes a good point. Like, why the fuck? What reason do I have to stand up for this fucking guy? I have no connection to him. There's nothing about him that, in my opinion, warrants his inclusion on the Breaking Points lineup. He doesn't have the talent. His videos aren't that interesting. I barely ever watch them, even in the rare instance that it's something that's not total cringe and that I don't totally disagree with. I still barely watch it because it's just not that interesting. And again, even the things he says that I do agree with and that I do really like, you can already hear that from fucking Krystal and Saagar. You want to hear criticism of Israel and of Kash Patel? Well, guess what? You can tune into just about any fucking episode of Breaking Points and hear that from all four of the fucking hosts.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there. The Vanguard will be there.